creating a culture of love. Dad bod's an excuse. You know, we're all busy.
A lot of psychedelics.
Did you bring me anything from the down under?
I was doing it for the wrong reasons.
I turned a scribble into this.
Well said.
And I believe that.
Who is Chris?
Bullshitting ourselves, lying to ourselves, deceiving ourselves.
I've got the mushrooms.
Turning dad bods into father figures.
Well said.
What's up, Chris?
How are you, Ruben? It's great to see you.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. I am here with Chris Dufey from Australia. Right?
It is correct.
Did you bring me anything from the down under?
I didn't. I'm sorry. I brought myself.
That's all that matters. That's perfect. You brought you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for coming and joining us. Today, you know, we're talking about how, you know, I'm always saying like we're reinventing dad bod, right? We're two fathers. I'd say we're fit. Many would say you're jacked. But I definitely want to talk about that because there's this thing around the dad bod that I think is an excuse. Like, not to insult anyone or say there's anything wrong with it, but I still feel like that's a cop-out. Like, oh, I just have a dad bod. I'm like, what does that mean? Are you satisfied in the way you look and you're like, oh, let's dad bod it? Like, you know, what does it make you feel if someone were to tell you, hey, you have a dad bod?
Well, I think a lot of people are taking it like it is. For me, the way I see it is people are making a compromise. And I don't want to accept compromises in my life. And for me, when I look at myself and my life and how I want to show up on a day-to-day level, I did not want to accept the most common compromises that you and I and the viewers see every single day, where someone builds a successful business, but they lose their relationship with their children and their wife. Yeah. They create success in one area of life, but then they get out of shape and get a dad bod. You know, there's all these compromises people are making. And when I took a step back, it was a while ago. It was actually when I first moved to Dubai. I was like, I'm not making any of those compromises anymore. I wanted to have a very holistic, wholesome, deemed for myself successful life. And that meant I wanted to be able to be a successful entrepreneur. I wanted to be in great shape. I wanted to love how I look, feel, and perform on a day-to-day level. I want to have incredible relationships with my 4 daughters, with my wife, with friends. I wanted to be able to do the work that I love. And I didn't want to make all these compromises.
Yeah. Compromise, not well said. Compromise is the word there. Not to say that it's a bad word, but it could have negative energy or positive energy. But let me take one step back. Chris Dufey, entrepreneur, fitness enthusiast, father of 4. You've recently exited and sold a business, right? Coach, mentor. You're in that space, you know, and I love the conversations we've had in the past on your podcast that I've shared on our podcast before as a repurposing of an episode. So that's why I'm glad you came into town. You're on the show. I wanted to make sure people knew who you were, though. But so how do you stay fit? You know, people ask me that all the time, but let's talk about that, because I think it's, you know, we're all busy, but we're all entrepreneurial. We all do or don't have kids, but we all do things all the time that we have reasons and excuses not to be healthy, not to lean into our wellness. And I kind of want to work around that at this moment.
So this is very salient for me because it was interesting. Just the other day, someone came up to me at the gym and was like, oh, you're in amazing shape. How do I get a body like yours? And I was like, don't miss a workout for 10 years. Then come and talk to me.
Yeah.
And so there's a few things that I think come about it. I think there is, number one, I was really overweight when I was a teenager. It really held me back athletically. I did not like myself. I did not love myself when I was a teenager. And then when I finished school, I started to try everything that I possibly can to be able to lose the weight and get in shape. And it was actually when I broke up with my girlfriend at the time, which is actually now my wife. Oh. And it was the motivation, it was the incentive for me to, how do I get in shape? Because I'm doing a single dude. I didn't want to be a single dude and I wanted to be able to attract women. Mm-hmm. So that was my motivation at the time. And I got in shape and I started to get in okay shape. And I started to see the impact it had in my life. And so at the age of 18, I had no idea what I really wanted to do with my life, to be honest. And so I had this transformation within myself. And so then I became a personal trainer because I wanted to help other people go through that transformation. And I was a personal trainer from 18 till I held the label for way too long, to be perfectly honest. Way too long. I should have given that way up. But for me, I was then able to figure out how to get in really good shape. So I competed as a fitness model. I competed in London, Denmark, and Australia. I then was a physique coach. Then I would coach other people. So I coached like world champion fitness models, politicians, Arab sheikhs, like CEOs. I did the whole gamut of everyone. And I got to become known as a coach that was like, when people were really struggling and nothing else was working, like I was the one that was able to actually help them.
Call Chris.
Yeah, in a little similar situation, it was like that. And it was good because I was able to have that skill set. And then I then had to look upon myself, and it was why I actually stopped competing, because my last competition, I dabbled with bulimia and I could see that my mental health was not there and I was doing it for the wrong reasons. And so for me, I now kind of look back and I want to be able to practice as much as often. It's like the Buddha quote where it really comes down to, it's not the outcome of an action that makes it a success. It's the motivation behind it. So what's motivating me behind something? Because at the end of the day, I only can control my thoughts and my actions. Everything else is doing really up to Lady Fortune. And so for me, it was able to then come about and be able to use my skill set that I had gone through, but doing it from a better motivation, somewhere where I wasn't wanting to build this armor and protect myself, because really inside there was a little boy that was just hurting at the end of the day for many reasons as well. And that's when I was able to, I hope, come from a better motivation and to be able to do it. And it was recently, I had a friend come up to me and ask some advice, another entrepreneur, great entrepreneur. And he was like, hey, look, I'm really struggling getting in shape. Can you give me some help? And everyone wants the diet trick or the training program or something like that. The biohack. Yeah, dude, there is no hack, if we can just like put that on the table. But for me, it's something that I literally use on a day-to-day basis. And it's one question. And the question is, if I love myself, will I ... If I love myself, will I go to the gym? If I love myself, will I eat this meal? If I love myself, will I read this book or watch Netflix? If I love myself, whatever it is.
That's an amazing question. I want to pause you right there because I want to take one step back and we'll come right back to this. The result, the action versus the motivation, right? And I'm going to use this very simply as a vain example. If I train and eat and diet only to have a six-pack, there's going to be a huge letdown. I'm going to be miserable. I'm not going to be healthy. I might look good on the outside, but the inside's going to be wrecked, and the mental health. But in my case, my motivation is I want to play with my grandkids. This has been my motivation forever. When I'm 70, traversing the world and still traveling, I want to still run up the hill or hobble, whatever, but I want to do it. I don't want to be stuck in a chair or not be able to do it. The six-pack is a happy byproduct of the motivation that's fueling me. I've been training my entire life because I love training. I love seeing my human potential. And I still run 5-minute and change miles. Like I keel over now. It takes longer to recover. But like, that's really cool. It's like, I just want to do that. And I want to see how long I can do that for, right? Sometimes now it's like, dude, I want to have a six-pack at 70. But that's just another piece of the motivation. It's like, I want to be here for my grandkids. I want to travel the earth. So with that being said, I just wanted to realize like, it's all about the motivation. That's going to keep you in the gym. That's going to keep you doing it every day. Because trust me, there are more days than not that I do not want to get up and I do not want to go to the gym and I do not want to work out. But when I'm done, thank you, Ruben, for going. You don't regret it after. It's just making sure you're motivated to get there.
I love that. And for me, there was a couple of things that have been really interesting for me when it comes about to how does this actually happen at the end of the day? Because my wife said to me not that long ago, and she was just like, you're in the best shape of your life now. And she knows I'm not trying. Like someone said to me, he goes, Chris, you're the most disciplined person I know. And I was like, and I thought about it and I was like, yes, but no at the same time. And when I kind of peeled this back and then I kind of went to some friends to really like unpack this, there was two things that came up for me. And I think this can actually be really useful to apply because I don't hear other people talking about this. And this is where it's a case of number one, training yourself to get a dopamine hit to actually do the right thing, right? Mm-hmm. So I get a dopamine hit about eating that really simple, healthy meal rather than doing a treat, or ice cream, a chocolate or something like that. I'll get the dopamine hit by actually pushing it away when it's not needed because I know I'm already nourished rather than like going after it. So it's actually like training yourself to be able to flip that. And then I think that also leads into...
You're getting your hit from willpower.
Well, I don't think it's actually willpower. I think it's what I think is...
Or saying no to that little overweight boy.
No, I think it comes down to training yourself to know what the right thing is and that being the motivation behind it. So for me, it then came into identity. Mm-hmm. Like we go to the gym, we work out. Like, are we going to actually really question it at the end of the day? Like, are we really sitting there going, am I going to go there? Do you know what I mean? It's like, no, we just do it. Do you know what I mean? Why? Because it's been habitual and it's been
I wake up, I pee, I go to the gym.
Exactly. Like it's ingrained in who we are. And that's when I come down to, I wrote something a little while ago and it was like hunters hunt, lovers love. Do you mean like you do what you are? And so if that's the identity that you embody on that day-to-day level, then that's easily what you're going to do. There's no question when it comes about it. There's no like option for you to like, oh no, maybe I'm just not going to do it today. But no, I'm the person that goes and does that. Like I went to the gym earlier and I didn't question it. I knew that was what was going to happen as well. Mm-hmm. I do the work that I need to do. I show up for my family. Like I did my journaling and my meditation this morning. Do you know what I mean? It's just because that's who I am. Yeah. Actually, this was super interesting. I shared something with a friend and they were like, what? And I was like, I don't think I've ever publicly said this as well. As a part of my journaling process in the mornings, there is one question that I ask myself and it was, I will achieve all that I want because, and I reckon for about the last year, my one answer is I will achieve what I want because it's just who I am. It's just what I do. And for me, it was that word just. It kind of alleviates all the pressure and stress. Like it just lets go of all of this like angst and heaviness that can come with it because it's just who I am. It's just what I do. And so it's ingraining that into the identity.
I'm trying to find the right word of what that is, but it really distills it down to like, it's like me writing love once, just like that, right? Yeah. It's so simple. It's like, it's just what I do.
Yes.
It's not writing it off, but it's not overthinking it and like sitting in that like analysis paralysis. So yeah, that's what I like about that. That's simple.
Simple. Can't be complicated. Otherwise I won't be able to know what to do.
Yeah. So let's jump into that question now. That question that you're like, if I love myself,
will I, whatever it is. Anyone can apply this and I actually would suggest apply it on the most like little, almost meaningless things as well. But like the easiest thing to do is like the next meal that we eat, just pause for a second. If I love myself. And that's super important for me because I had a lot of unpacking. I felt a lot of unworthiness as for myself for a very long time. It took a lot of psychotherapy, a lot of psychedelics, a lot of doing the work to be able to get to the place of I do love myself. I love the man that I've created and how I show up on a day-to-day level. But if I love myself again kind of like drops that weight, drops that heaviness. And it's more of a thought experiment rather than this like hard, rigid rule. And so if I love myself, will I eat this meal? And just pausing and seeing what bubbles up.
Because you could look at that and it's like, you could question, do I love myself? Okay, yes, no. If I love myself, I will do X, Y, Z. When I love myself, I will. Like we could start putting a little bit of layers into those things right now. And ultimately, we're trying to all get to this point of self-love because you can't teach anyone or tell someone, this is how you love yourself. You know? Now this. No, my kid's going to learn by how I'm practicing with myself.
So let's apply this to as a father. And I think we live too much in a world of people wanting prescription and step-by-steps and checklists. And that's not life.
It's not organic.
We learn through more osmosis at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? By me just being able to have more hang time with you, through osmosis, I'm being able to kind of like get the essence, get the gestalt of like what is actually really going on, and then kind of like seeps into myself to then be able to kind of like manifest in a certain way. And so as a father, like they don't do and they don't learn from what we say.
No.
They learn from what we do. And so for me, I'm like trying to work as often as I possibly can is being able to have the awareness like, okay, am I showing up as the man that I admire, but is going to be the best father for my 4 daughters? And by doing that, I obviously I check myself before I wreck myself and be able to actually do the right actions.
No, for sure. And 4 daughters, though. Come on. 4 daughters. Like, let's look at that. Like asking these questions now, how much it's even more important on how you're showing up for them. And so you're still battling with that little boy. Did you have a lot of emotions tied to eating and food and habits?
Yes.
And that could be important also raising 4 women in this world too, because yes, a lot of that stuff does tie to men, but we know that it's even more apparent in women.
I very much thought about that as well. So as a child, I had an eating disorder for sure. Like I would hide away. I would go and buy like packs of cookies, biscuits, and just like inhale it. Do you know what I mean? And it took me a lot to be able to get rid of that habit and get rid of that part of me. I think it's still there, but I'm much better at being able to control it, and the kind of the identity again, kind of like is able to like push that away. But very much so, as a father of 4 daughters, I don't want to be seen as like this health obsessive. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, I've got to like. Someone asked me, like, what's your macros? And I was like, I have no idea. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not doing any of that stuff, but I'm wanting to do it from mentally as healthy as possibly. And then obviously on a physical, actually nourishing myself as best as possible as well. And then my girls will hopefully be able to pick up the right traits and characteristics and skills and just be able to apply that to themselves as well.
Yeah, it's that happy balance. It's that moderation. You can actually enjoy everything. Like I eat pizza, cake, I drink, I don't have this super rigid thing. Now, I never bodybuild, but if I was bodybuilding or getting ready for a cover or something, obviously there's stuff that you need to dive in. But there is like this whole tab. Like when CrossFit first started, I was like OG CrossFit, and people didn't even, what's CrossFit? Oh, cool. But then like 2010, 11, 12, when people like got super nutty. And then I stopped saying I was a CrossFitter because there's people that go overboard in everything, right? The overcorrection of super health crazy, super bodybuilding crazy. Like I only eat boiled chicken and rice. And like there is this other side of it. So sometimes it could be like, yo, I'm in the middle. I want you to know that like you can eat your cake, you can be fit and healthy, and then just eat well most of the time. Sometimes it's like Pareto's law, 80-20. Let's use the 80-20 rule.
Aristotle's golden mean. Do you know what I mean? Like there is the Buddha's, the middle path. Like there is a place in the middle, because too fast on one side, do you know what I mean? And you start get loopy and you go off. Too far on the other side of the pendulum and does the exact same thing as well. And it's an interesting point you bring that up, because it's when like, now it's just not this big thing for me. And I love that, because it's not taking time, energy, resources away from all of this other stuff. And that's what I really want people to be able to pick up. Like that's like, it doesn't have to be this thing. Like, yes, at the start, I literally had a mate send me a WhatsApp message today, and he was like, hey, I really want to do it. He's in his early 40s, really wants to be able to get in better shape. He knows it for longevity and all of these other things. I'm like, great. It does take a push to like get moving though.
The first 30 days, if you're going into a program, are very important, but then it's really the first 30, then 60, then 90 days.
Yeah, agreed. And it's also from the case in point, if you're not willing to do what it is you're about to do for the long term, is it really the right thing? Because Do you know what I mean? Like the success rate of diets, I don't know what the exact percentage is, but it's appalling. Like it's absolutely appalling, the actual success rate, because people will lose weight, but it's not about the losing the weight. It's can you keep it off? Can you stay in better shape? Can you actually enjoy yourself?
I just lost 30 pounds in 30 days. Guess what's going to come back? 30, maybe 45 pounds in 45 days.
Yes.
It comes back because you haven't dealt with the problem.
It comes back, but it's actually been shown as well, it'll come back plus more, because you can actually start to ruin and do damage to your metabolism and to your body. So you're actually making it harder and harder every time that you do that as well.
And then the term diet as well is always misused, because your diet is what you eat every single day. That's your diet. Look at what you're eating. That is your diet. Now we're talking like, what's a nutrition plan? Are you on a plan?
I like using the word nourish.
Yeah.
Are you nourishing yourself? Because then it's not so much about the protein and carbs and fats and all of that kind of stuff. That I was just like, it's like for the vast majority of people, I just don't think they need to go into that level of detail.
No, for sure.
And I think too much of the advice coming from bodybuilders doesn't stem down to the general population of what it is they need to do. And as well, like I think a lot of people fall into the trap of following someone's advice, that like we all have our biases. And so following someone's advice where they're essentially, in most cases, just regurgitating what's working for them. Right? So I just turned 36. And so let's say someone's in their late 30s, in their 40s, 50s, do you mean father, entrepreneur, like we're spinning lots of plates right now. And that's a fantastic thing. And we can do that at the same time. But taking advice from a 20-year-old bodybuilder, like there's a mismatch there. And it takes a little bit of thinking, a little bit of critical thinking to go, oh, okay, maybe that's not going to be the right thing for me.
Not to mention, like your metabolism's at two different levels. They haven't dealt with the older, but ultimately, one of the things you said earlier, but we are all our own set of chemistry, right? So not everything works for everyone. Some people are high carb, some people are low carb, some people are high fat, some people are protein only. Like all these quote unquote diets that work for that one person that put it out there.
That worked for that one person at that time for them as well.
Exactly. To be clear, there is, if you're plant-based, that works really well for a lot of people. And if you're really overweight, it can get you to lose a lot of weight and clean you back up. But maybe that's not the right long-term solution for you. And you do need to reintroduce some meat. This isn't about the philosophies around what you're putting in your mouth. It's more about listen to your body and realize that everyone takes in calories differently and it's affected differently. Some people are like, I look at food and I gain weight,
But, a couple of things. This is really good. One is the mental attitude that someone's bringing to the table with that as well.
Yeah.
So like being very careful, being very aware of what are the words that you're using and what's the spell that you're essentially casting upon yourself as well, to do with any parts of life. But if someone's saying like, oh yeah, like I just look at a cake and I put on weight, it was like, okay, I'm not caring about the food anymore. I'm caring about the internal dialogue that this person's having as well. Let's clean that up. And there will be a follow-on effect for their diet. It's like, what's one of the easiest ways to help someone lose weight? Is get them to write a food journal. Just get them to write down what it is they're doing. No advice ever needs to be given. They will naturally start to actually make better choices because of that effect as well. Actually, it reminds me when I was a physique coach, I would sit down in like a consultation, going through the process, and a really common question I would get asked is like, so what methodologies do you use? What's the diet that we're going to use, or the training, blah, 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 and all this other stuff. And I would be like, all right, if I read you poetry and we went for windy walks on the beach, but you still got in the body that you want, would you care? And they're like, oh, no. And I go, great. I'm completely agnostic to what it is that we need to do. All I really focus on is what's going to need to work for you now, and then we'll play along.
I'll go on the walk on the beach with you.
I'd love to go for a walk on the beach.
But anyway,
can we hold hands?
No, for sure. Of course. Which hand? Left, right?
I'm up.
Can we skip?
Of course.
Okay.
I'll give you a squeeze in the bum.
We got to be barefoot though. But the journaling is like when I was a personal trainer, I was helping people through nutrition. Mostly we're psychologists, therapists, counselors, or just walls to give sounding boards and just to listen. But I always told people, write down for 2 weeks what you eat. Then come back to me. If you can do that, I will take you on as a client. 9 out of 10 people just didn't do it. And I didn't have time to just, babysit, which is a lot of things that happen. I have a lot of nutrition coach friends, and their biggest thing is like just trying to get someone to actually commit. Most people know that they're having a problem and they're doing it wrong, but it's like, how do we really get you to pass the, okay, but like, why aren't we taking action? What's the root of it?
So I applied this recently with clients and partners on a business context. And for me, and especially with males, I found this very poignant and kind of like pierces through. And I'd bring up the word foolish. I go, you're being foolish right now. And to me, the definition of foolishness is knowing the right thing to do, but lacking the strength of character to follow through with it. And so I will bring up and go, you're being foolish. They know, like, you know what to do. Do you know what I mean? Business context, you know the mundane things that you should be doing on that day-to-day level. Do you mean to be able to get leads, make sales, build a business, do all that other stuff? Do you know what I mean? You know what it is that you need to do to be able to get in shape. Do you know what I mean? Eat the right foods, move more often, make sure you take care of stress. Sleep is super important. Drink water. Do you know what I mean? But then lacking the strength of character to be able to do it. And that's the thing for me, is ensuring that what are you doing to build your character to be able to essentially have that identity of doing what it is that you need to do.
That's the question. What are you doing to build the character, the discipline, taking responsibility, and becoming the leader to actually innate this change? We all know what to do.
Yes.
But yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's like, what is your character behind this? How are you feeding that?
That came back to me a while ago. I was at the gym and I had a partner message me. And she asked a question and I was like, hey, I'll get back to you soon. I'm just about to walk in. I'm about to demolish my legs. Like that was the words I used. I was about to demolish my legs. You know what I mean? It was leg day and I was really looking forward to it. And she made a remark about the words that I use. And I go, that's a really good point. And I took a step back and I thought about it and I go, no, I'm walking into the gym to strengthen my character. That's what I'm here to do. So when I walk in, that's the thing. I'm here to strengthen my character because by the byproducts, it's the physique, it's the health, it's like the performance, how you show up day to day. But the essence, the root of it, I'm here to strengthen my character.
No, that's it. Let's leave it there. That is how you get into shape, folks. So continuing that, as an athlete, weight train. Why I got into weight training is I was always an athlete, and to become a better athlete, a stronger athlete, you go in and train, make yourself better mentally, physically, and all that. But I've realized, like, how can we start taking those same tools into business, right? I was early in my 20s. I was in real estate, and there was a guy in the couple desks behind me. He's like, you're going to look like me. You're going to put on weight. You're going to be a big fat guy. You'll see, because you'll just be chasing all the money. I'm like, all right, we'll see, And to me, again, training was just a byproduct. It's how I ended my day. Now I start my day that way. It was just part of my character. I was an athlete my whole life. So I didn't let that deter me. But months in, I start slowly becoming the top performer, outperform him, get in better shape, never put on the weight, never, go down that path. That was about 10 years in that. And then I go into finance. Same thing. People start saying, oh, you're not going to have time to stay fit and stay healthy. It's my character now. That's it. You nailed it. It's like, what is my character? But how do I apply that to everything? I apply that to business by doing the stuff we don't want to do. Doing the stuff we don't want to do when nobody's watching. Making the calls in finance, the 10-3 run. You got to make the dials. You got to do the thing to get the meetings, to get a client. We have the formulas. Again, we know everyone has all the answers and all the information. It's all out there. Google.com. Do you have the wherewithal and the character to actually go through with it? That right there, I think, that's the question. There's no answer to that because that's solely on you.
Yeah. So what comes up when you say that is this comes down to our self-esteem. Yeah. And for me, this is the beauty of, at the end of the day, I am the only person that knows whether I followed through and did the thing that I said that I was going to do. I don't even need to say it out loud. I say to myself, oh, I'm going to do this. I want to achieve this. I want to be able to get this. I'm going to do this. I'm the one that knows at the end of the day. And so this is where it comes to this. For me, it's actually really interesting. I've been thinking about this recently. And this is, it comes down to, one, being able to lower your self-deception, your ability to self-deceive yourself. And two, it comes into your ability to have greater contact with reality. So like taking away the story that you might be telling yourself right now and actually looking at what's really reality, what's really going on right now, and then being able to do it. Because I don't want to be able to self-deceive myself. And I think we all have the ability as well. And it's a difference between bullshitting and lying, right? There's a really great essay by Harry Frankfurt called On Bullshit. And it's really good because he talks about the difference between bullshitting and lying. And bullshitting, a bullshitter cares about the end outcome. They'll use the truth if they need be, but if the truth isn't going to get there, then they will bullshit to get to the end outcome as well. And this can appear in any area of life as well. So this is where it comes down to being able to like get truth within oneself and to be able to know like, okay, like, am I showing up the way that I need to be? Am I self-deceiving myself in some way? Am I fabricating a story? And that really only comes about when, one, being able to realize you can take the lens off that you're viewing life through. And that's self-awareness. And that's being able to have the ability to create this subject-object relationship between yourself and what's going on in the story that you're starting to tell yourself. So I need to take the lens off and go, oh, how am I viewing life, myself and all of these other things, entrepreneur, family, fitness, whatever. And then being able to go, is this best serving me? Is this actually doing what it needs to do to help me actually be, for myself, the man that I want to be? Because maybe you need to cleanse the lens. Maybe you need to change the lens. Do you know what I mean? But then it's being able to then, because by nature, we're going to put the lens back on to be able to continue on. Because I think it's most likely one definition of enlightenment is, you know that you're not looking through that lens the entire time as well. You're not fabricating this story. So it's being able to have that ability to take a step back. And this is where like silence and stillness and spaciousness is so important I believe on a day-to-day level, to be able to come back, create a bit of a subject-object relationship, be able to view it, and then be able to question, is this best serving me? And then being able to like kind of like rinse and repeat and move on.
Imagine just stepping aside, putting yourself on a table like a flower pot and observing it.
Literally.
Like if we can make it that simple. Obviously it's not.
Well, I dare say it is. Something that I learned from a good friend of mine, Todd Herman, was writing, like in my journal every morning, I write at the end, I write in the third person. So like Chris is feeling, Chris needs to, onwards. And it's literally doing that. I'm literally putting myself over there and trying to view myself, and it's remarkable what can come up by actually doing that. Like there is innate wisdom. And so for me, what this actually really is, it's by creating a multi-perspectival view of what's going on in life. And by having a multi-perspectival view, that's where we garner insight. And insight is this, oh my God, I never thought of that. Do you know what I mean? Like somebody might say, let's use an entrepreneur's example. They're trying to build their business and they think recently I had this conversation. This dude wanted to build a supplement business and came to me for some advice and help. And he thought he needed to do the whole content thing. Do you know what I mean? He's like, I need to do a podcast. I need to do YouTube. I need to do all these videos. I need to do Instagram. And he was getting really overwhelmed with it. And I was like, dude, like, what is it that you enjoy doing? What's your zone of genius? And it was not that at all. And his strength was actually really with networking, connecting with people. I go, well, why don't you go more the route of using other people's audiences and creating the incentive for them to get their audience to your business, and you don't need to do any of the content stuff. And he looked younger in about 3 seconds. Yeah. He was like, oh, I never thought of that. Insight by having a different perspective. Yeah. And yes, having someone else is very important to be able to garner that, but you can also do it for yourself.
That definitely would take a practice, but I could see that. I might have to try that. I have to remember to go try that. Also, it's good to acknowledge yourself that way as well and provide feedback for yourself then potentially.
Because what is the self?
The ego part or the id part? The self-conscious part?
Any part. Is there a self?
I believe there is a self, and I believe if we're all connected, right? If we see this through line of love and the vibration of love, we can all see how there is different selves, and different people connect to different energy. Obviously, we're more on the fit side of energy that we take in, right? And some other people are not on that side, or entrepreneurial side versus working a job side, father versus not father. Like you can see where people kind of plug in and like, but then where's the main self that we're all plugged into, and who are we pulling from? Like that could get meta though.
I know. I just like throwing that question out to see what the response is that comes up, because for me, I find it really interesting as to like, well, actually, who is Chris? Do you know what I mean? Like the quote, know thyself is really going to like, what's the absolute essence of how you're operating on a day-to-day level? Like, do you have wisdom as to how that is happening? And it's the difference between, like, say you used the word philosophy before, which comes from the word philosophia, Sophia, the love of wisdom, and it's different from actual wisdom at the end of the day and how we actually apply it on a day-to-day level also. So it's interesting where that comes up, because that's where it's like, yeah, like for me, love, it's that essence that's when everything gets ripped back, when everything is just like you drop any story and what comes back, what's there? It's love. I don't know, or the feeling, whether it's through meditation, whether it's through psychedelics, whether it's through having an amazing conversation and being in dialogos, whether it's making love to my wife, whether it's receiving my child as they're being born, whether it's just playing on the beach, do you know what I mean? Like that's the essence of it as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a good point. Because going back a step to know thyself also, which self are we trying to know, and which self are we hiding from, and which self are we lying to? Like there's all those things. And what day is it? Today's Wednesday and I feel dark. So like knowing myself today is like, I don't know, I'm in the shadows. Or the next, I just sold a huge deal. Oh my God, this is life changing. Like yourself is different there. That's a whole different, like, there's a whole thing we can go down right there. On mushrooms, there'll be a whole nother world too.
That could be have you seen Jerry Seinfeld's show? Was it Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee?
I know of it. I haven't watched it.
I've watched a bunch of episodes, and I was chatting with a mate after it, and I was talking about the concept of that show. I go, this is amazing. I was truly in love and in awe of what he's done. He loves cars. He's a comedian, and he just wants to like hang out with other comedians, and they just talk their talk. And I was like, that's really cool. He's in his zone of genius. And I was applying this to some of my partners to help them get the concept of they need to be in their zone of genius for their business to flourish. And anytime they're not in their zone of genius, they're actually losing money. Their business is actually going to be like retracting rather than expanding. And then I said to myself, I was like, oh, what's a show I would love to do? So like, I love doing the Christopher Dufey podcast because I get to talk about all this stuff. But one of the concepts was I'd love to do philosophers on mushrooms going for a walk.
And today we are on the beach. Nope, now we're in the forest.
Yeah. So if you want to go and get some mushrooms, go for a walk, we'll have a drone or something. We'll record it.
That's amazing. I've got the drone. It'll autopilot us.
I've got the mushrooms.
Let's go. Part 2 of this conversation will be on the beach. We will be holding hands with no shirts. No, with all jokes aside, though, we were talking about something prior to that, which was there's very few things we can control in our life. You know, and you were talking about deceiving yourself. I say lying to ourselves. How often are we breaking our word with ourselves? And lying to ourselves? Like, let's take inventory of that. I've never really took note, like, oh, today I broke this and I lied to myself here and I didn't do this and I didn't do that. Maybe that's also a good practice to start thinking about.
Can I make one shift? And this is just my belief with this. I don't think we can lie to ourselves. Like, you can't say, oh, I'm a female teenager. Right? Like, that's like, but you can bullshit yourself. And again, I'm just going into the actual like kind of semantics of the words, but I just think, and I feel like it's more poignant, kind of gets to it. It's like, am I bullshitting myself? And it's like, oh, like there's many times like, oh yeah, I am. Like there was one recent business decision that I made and I was like, oh my God, I got myself into this because I was totally bullshitting myself. And then I had to course correct.
No, yeah. Again, choice of words, bullshitting ourselves, lying to ourselves, deceiving ourselves, whatever lands for the person. That was a good call out. We can't lie to ourselves like that, but we can lie to ourselves in the sense of like being overly optimistic, toxic positivity,
Yes.
or running around, I'm grateful for everything, when you're really not. Those kinds of things. That's what I mean. It's like almost not fake it till you make it, but like constantly doing that or constantly breaking our word. And that's where I'm really saying like, how often do we do that? And then we make it a habit. But a way to, I think, attack that is renegotiate. Renegotiating is A-okay. It's a practice. Hey, you know what, Ruben? Let's renegotiate that. You said you were going to, look, we've been talking about fitness, so work out for an hour, but you've got 30 minutes now. Just show up and do the 30 minutes and move on with your day. So how many times can we now renegotiate instead of bullshit, lie, deceive, or just not do something, right?
Can I share one heuristic when it comes to that that's helped me? It's okay to suck, but it's not okay to skip.
Yeah.
If too many people believe in your idea, it's not good enough. Success as an entrepreneur and in life, you need the appropriate level of delusion, some, but not too much. You need the tenacity of a freight train when pursuing an idea, whilst simultaneously the ability to turn on a dime as soon as you see good evidence on the contrary. And I was like, that to me surmised so much, especially with entrepreneurship. But again, that's exactly, let's apply that to fitness. Do you know what I mean? You need the tenacity to be able to follow something through and like be like, this is what I need to do. I need to go through with it. But if it's not working, you need to be able to turn on a dime and then to be able to let go of that belief and happily move with the flow of it.
No, totally. That's great. We'll copy paste that, send it, and make sure we show it. The word that stuck out and I'm still thinking about is delusional.
Yeah.
Like I've been saying it now. Like I turned a scribble into this. Like who would ever thought? Like I just scribble. Now it's this, and we have a podcast, and we got murals and sculptures and clothing, everything around the world. But like, was I delusional enough? Was I committed to my vision to believe that I can change the world by doing this and then receiving the feedback and just continuing to move? Yeah, like I don't think everyone, I'm going to acknowledge myself in that moment. I don't think anyone can think that or do it unless you truly believe it. And I believe that because I hear it. You know, haters are like, oh, you think you could write just love all over the world and you're going to change it and make it better?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, you can and will and am. And I'm in awe of it. I admire it extremely. Like, that's like when we first got together, I was just like, oh, I love this dude. This is amazing. And the work that you do, I was so curious and fascinated into it as well. And yes, you are changing the world because of the scribble. And does that denote, demean, or take away any of the power of what it is? Absolutely not.
No.
If anything, it actually shows just how bloody great it is. And it lays down, for me, what I want to be able to pick up what you put down from what you say with that is I don't need the cure for cancer for me to be able to improve the world of some time.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be this grandiose thing. It can be something what a lot of people deem as small or even insignificant, but you had the right amount of delusion, some, but not too much, for you to follow through. And here we are today.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. That's why delusion stuck out in that quote. That's a good quote. Thank you for sharing. But that's also why I dumb that down now. Lately, I've just been saying, wow, I turned a scribble into this. Because it sounds so simple, but it's like there's so much more to that. And there's so much more to everything, right? You just sold a business, right? A lot of people start businesses with the sole notion of, I'm going to exit for millions. And I'm not saying you exited for millions or anything.
No, I did. And it was awesome.
No, it's awesome. How much then? Can we look this up? Can we get Alex Hormozy on here?
Love Alex. Actually, it was actually a lot of Alex's help that did actually get me to the point of being able to sell.
Amazing. Well, congratulations on that. But what I'm saying is, like, you probably did not start with that end goal. It became a goal and it became an opportunity, and you took it and you earned that through what you're doing. But I think it goes back to the motivation with what we're doing in our lives, right? If you start a business with the sole motivation is I'm going to exit for millions and it's going to be a unicorn, well, 99.9 out of 100 fail. So what is the right motivation behind doing that and making it go to that point? So, ultimately, like what is that commitment? What is the everything we've been talking about is that to get you to those points?
So it took me 4 to 5 years from founding the business to selling, and I really only had the thought. It was a coaching business as well. And I got told by so many people, you can't sell a coaching business. No one sells a coaching business. They're not sellable businesses at the end of the day. And I was like, I had the right amount of delusion. And I was like, no, I want to do this. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it my way. And I sat down, thought I could try and figure it out. The biggest thing that obviously stopped me from selling it for more and selling it faster was I didn't think I was good enough or smart enough to be able to do it. And I had to do that personal work, to be able to get to the point of like, no, I am good enough. I am smart enough. I am enough to be able to follow through with that. And that was a big shift, because once that shift happened, well, then I could actually start acting in accordance to be able to make that a reality at the end of the day. And it didn't really even take that long after I kind of like had that shift. Everything like really like fell into place. And for me, it was very much the case of then just being able to do what a business is supposed to do. It solves problems and it gives greater value in the marketplace. Yeah. That's it. That's why I think like capitalism is a good thing, because what I'm doing is I'm bringing value into the marketplace. I'm solving someone's problem, and they're being more than happy to barter and exchange their dollars for me to be able to solve that problem for them.
Yeah. Are you providing value? So it's value for value at the end of the day. And, capitalism is a beautiful thing. It's also healthy competition and doing something right. Like, we have this opportunity to be entrepreneurial and create anything we want, but it's up to us to really get it out there. So you thought you weren't enough or worthy enough to sell it for more? Is that what you were saying?
At one point, yes, absolutely.
What was the motivation to start it, though? Because sometimes people are like, oh, the world thinks I'm not worthy or I'm not enough, so I'm going to start this, right? So what's the motivation to the beginning that got you to that point? And it's interesting that you had that conversation around the selling topic of it.
Yeah, so I was running a personal training business in Sydney, and then I had the opportunity to move to Dubai, and I moved to Dubai, started a fitness business in Dubai, and then after a while I burnt out again doing the exact same thing. And then it was back in 2014 where I was like, I want to start an online business. I could see that was the way. When I read the 4-Hour Workweek, I could see some other people doing amazing things. I had that internal motivation to being like, okay, I want to travel the world. I want to be able to raise my family with us being able to travel the world. I want to help more people. And then I wanted to be able to transfer my skills as a personal trainer to online fitness. And that's when my wife came to me, God love her, Lauren, and she was like, we can't keep living here in Bali. You're burning out really badly. You're starting this online fitness. Do you want to keep doing it? I was like, yeah, I really enjoy it. And I think I'm actually pretty good at it too. And so that's when we moved to Bali, and I started the online fitness business then. And something happened because I fell more in love with the business side of things than the fitness. I got more like good feels out of helping someone with business than I did with fitness. And it was 5 years ago, I want to say now, maybe a little bit longer. I was running 3 businesses. I had the online fitness business, I had a supplement business, and I was selling supplements through retail in Australia. And I was doing this online business coaching, and I had a mentor who was like, dude, choose one. You can only do like one thing really well, choose one. And so I think I made the right choice, and I chose the business coaching because that was the thing that was giving me the greatest feels, because being able to help someone have a greater business as an entrepreneur gave them so much more freedom and just gave them so much. I was like, oh, I want to give people that. Like, that's amazing. And so that's when that business started, is when I made that shift. And for me, it was being able to help other people. Like, to be perfectly honest, I was really overweight as a kid, and I learned to lose the weight, so I wanted to become a personal trainer. I ran a really shitty fitness business. I learned to run a good fitness business, so I help other people to be able to do that. And it's only really recently now I've become quite aware, as like, I didn't love myself. I didn't love the life that I was living, and now I'm being able to actually help people go through that kind of transition. And for me, the motivation was, I want to feel good. And so for me, I use the Pali word mudita, which is sympathetic joy. So this is the joy I feel when I see someone else enjoy. And so there is a selfish part of it, absolutely. But I think it's a great way to be selfish, is because I'm being sympathetic with my joy. If I see you enjoy and you lit up, oh my God, that brings me joy, and that's a fantastic thing. And now we can do this together, and it's only a spiral going up.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. What was that word again?
Mudita, M-U-D-I-T-A.
Mudita, sympathetic joy, right? Because it's just making me think about how often you look around, you take inventory and watch who's cheering for you as you're winning, right? Because in most cases, people aren't actually cheering for you while you're winning. And the fact that you've been able to create something, and then you get to be fulfilled by cheering for your customers and clients for winning, only reinforces that. So it's like this double-edged sword. You're fulfilling yourself, but also proving the concept and winning a business. You could have both.
You can have both. No compromises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love it.
And that's what we want to do as an entrepreneur. Like, we're doing it because we want to fulfill ourselves at the end of the day. Like, I've had a lot of conversations with other men, like, really interesting, actually. A lot of conversations with successful entrepreneurial men, and they've hit a point where they're lacking meaning and fulfillment. And what I realized through having these conversations, I was like, I call it like, you've got this God-shaped hole, and like more cash and success ain't going to fix that problem.
Yeah, no.
There is deeper levels that we need to peel back and start to get to. And that's harder work, because for a lot of us, especially like once we're in the routine and doing, we are good entrepreneurs, like we know how to do this stuff, it's easy to continue on doing that. Do you know what I mean? It's harder to actually do the work to be able to figure out, oh, like actually, like what's going on inside of me? What are these feelings? Like, how do I start being able to like let go of these things that are not actually best serving me? Yeah.
Well, as creatures of habit, we start going down those paths. So some of the conversations you're talking, it's like when I was in finance, I was doing really well. I'm like, well, I could keep doing this. I could keep making money. Great. In my 20s, when I was doing real estate, making money, I was validating everything, whatever was empty inside, by buying the rims and the trucks and all the stuff, diamond watches, you name it. Then you lose it all. And you're like, ooh, I got something here to work on. But sometimes people don't lose it all. But they get to that midlife crisis, or whatever you want to call it. They get to 55, like you're starting to feel old, and you're like, I can't do this anymore. I am miserable, and just the paycheck or just the accolade or just the trophy isn't enough. You finally get to the point, you know, and I just hope people get to those points way sooner than later. You know, because on our deathbed, right? People interview rich people all the time on their deathbed. What is the common thing? I wish I had more time. I wish I spent more time with my family. Like, it wasn't, I wish I worked more, or I wish I had more money. No, I don't even think unwealthy people would say, I wish I had more money. They're just like, I want more time.
It wasn't that long ago. I was actually going back over the last interview that we did, because I've started writing a book, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to call it Enough is Enough, because I want to answer. I want to figure out for myself, and I want to help others figure out, when is enough? When is it enough money? Do you know what I mean? When is there enough toys? When is there enough getting in shape, or do I need to build more muscle? Do you know? When is there enough of all of these things that we're constantly pursuing as well? Because for me, especially when you said, dude, I can have all this money, I can have all these toys, I can have all these accolades, but then it can get ripped away. And for me, I go back to the Buddhist philosophy, like whatever has the nature to arise will also pass away. It will all go away. All of it. Absolutely all of it. And so knowing that, how do we actually best cultivate ourselves so that we're not actually setting ourselves up for pain and suffering, because eventually it will happen. And that for me is really interesting, because it's easy to go after the things that we're like constantly have been pretty good at achieving as well. But if it's constantly causing us more suffering, like, dude, maybe it's time to turn on a dime.
Yeah. No, enough is enough. Like sometimes I'm like, do you need that much money?
So there's a point. I've literally asked that stuff for myself. So this is what I'm going through. Do you know what I mean? Like I do not have the answers. Like don't put me on a pedestal. Don't deserve that at all. And so I sold the company at the end of last year. My wife and I sat down and it felt like it was like this 10-year chapter for me. Do you know what I mean? We had left Australia. We moved to Dubai. We went through all of this. We've had 4 children. There was 5 pregnancies throughout this 10 years. I completely felt like I've changed as well, which is actually the main reason why I sold the business, because I got to a point and I was like, I don't want to, I said this in the negotiations with the guy that bought it, because he said to me, he goes, you could make millions more if you hold it on to this for a couple more years. And I go, I know, but I don't want to have more. I want to be more. Like the money stuff like has a limit to it. And I had to put my money where my mouth is, to be perfectly honest, because I was thinking about this concept of enough is enough. And so at the end of last year, I was like, okay, one of my mentors, Sharan, God love him, he taught me this concept of like financial freedom. Like so many people say, I want to be financially free, or like freedom is what we're looking for at the end of the day. So when I unpacked freedom for me, I read this in a Rudolf Steiner book. And so he talks about Freiheit, so freedom. So, but the ending is Heit, where freedom, the ending in DOM, is like the freedom that we typically think of, but freedom is coming from external sources. Okay. Freiheit is the freedom that's within. This is the freedom that we get inside of us. Peace. Yes, that's what we're looking for as well. Well, we want both, but ultimately it's the inner peace. It's the inner freedom that we're really looking for. So we're trying to go for this inner freedom through trying to do it through external means, which is doing a path of suffering. And so for myself, I sat down and go, okay, I reached financial I had reached 200% financial freedom, which is what Sharan taught me, which is my ultimate lifestyle expenses as a family through my cash producing assets. I have 200% of that. I don't need to work for money anymore. But what's really interesting, I'm working more now than when I was actually running the company, because I'm doing the things I'm so lit up about. Like I'm on this trip right now. Like I was like, hey, Ruben, I might be able to pop into LA, and you're like, come on in. Like, come on the show. I was like, done. I'll book the flight from Austin. I'll come in. Like, absolutely love to come and jam with you. And so this is where I was like, when is there enough money? And I think not enough people are really thinking about this, because for me, I came up with this concept that this works for me. So hopefully it helps somebody else out there. And it was, what is my minimum effective profit, right? So what's the minimum amount of money that I want to be making for me to feel good, feel safe, feel secure, feel whatever it is that ultimately we're trying to feel at the end of the day? What's my minimum effective profit? And then it was, what's my maximum output, which is what is the output that I'm limiting myself to be able to do? Because what I realized, to be perfectly honest, was I have 4 daughters. They're currently 9, 7, 3, and 1. They're only going to be this age once now. That's it.
Yeah.
And so if I put time, energy, money, resources into like going, oh, I want to build an 8-figure business. Let's go. Let's all do this and have like earn more money. I'm taking that time, energy, money, and resources away from my daughters and away from my wife, away from myself, away from my friends and all of this. And I didn't want to make that decision. And so I chose what's my minimum effective profit, my maximum output of what I want to do. Do you know what I mean? I only work 4 days a week, 4 hours a day, and that's the absolute cap of it. And I know I'm capping how much money I can earn, but I'm perfectly fine with that because I'm totally good with where it's at. And so now I can kind of like play with my resources elsewhere in life. And that's when I was thinking about, like, as an entrepreneur, I don't think this really applies if someone's got a job, but I think if I can just stick with an entrepreneurial person right now, is we have I deem that we need a money-making machine and we need a meaning-making machine.
Yep.
Right? So we need something that's going to be making us money. And now if I think of these like two circles and they overlap, right? So the money-making machine and the meaning-making machine, most people think that they need to do the one thing that does both of those. And when I thought about myself, I was like, no, it's actually different. So the work I do, like consulting and partnering with business right now, that's my money-making machine, right? But my meaning-making machine is having conversations like this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like being able to share what I share on the podcast, on the YouTube, like all of those. I don't make any money from that stuff and I'm not looking to monetize it at all, but that's how I get meaning in life because I'm wanting to be able to cultivate that stuff. And so I've just separated the two. So for me, when I have a conversation with someone, I'm like, well, what's your money making machine and what's your meaning making machine? And just getting really clear on those things because I don't believe that they have to be the exact same thing. They can be, cool, but it doesn't have to be either.
No, I agree. But there is an overlap, especially if we stick entrepreneurially, right?
Yep.
We need this. But there's things in the money making that we don't love or have meaning. It's just stuff that has to happen.
Correct.
And then meaning, purpose, vision, life, vision, whatever, wherever we want to take that. Mine kind of is overlapped.
I believe yours is, and that's why I was so fascinated when I first got to get together with you. And I was like, dude, this is epic. Do you mean like back at school, the only two things I was interested in, was actually good at, was business and art. Do you know what I mean? It was the only two things I was, and photography, but I'd put that together with art as well. And so for me, I had to step back, and it was after we first got together, I was thinking about the labels that we put upon ourselves.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Yeah. And I was like, all right, what are the labels that I want to put upon myself? And what are the labels I want to take off as well? And I wanted to use, I think this actually comes, I think it was the minimalists. My wife was talking about, like, they had a challenge. It was like a minimalist challenge. It's like day one, you take one thing away. Day two, you take two things away. Anyway, you work your way up to day 30 where you're taking 30 things away on that day 30, right? And so for me, like, I'm pretty minimal with like clothes and stuff. Like, I'm not that materialistic, to be perfectly honest. And so for me, I was like, what are the labels I want to take away? What are the goals I want to take away? Do you know what I mean? Like, what are the beliefs? What are the assumptions that I want to start taking away as well? And I thought to myself, I was like, what's one of the labels that I want to create for myself is a creator. And so I started to jam with that. And I had a bit of an experiment when I wasn't like writing goals down. And I'm like, I'm just a creator. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a father. Like, I set a select amount of labels, and I was like, knowing that these are the labels, what will a creator do today?
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting. I like that because I don't really set goals. I'm like, well, what am I creating today? What am I doing in the world to create the world I want to see? Like, everything is about creating and taking action. I feel like goal setting, not to poo-poo it, not to put it down, it's like New Year's resolutions. You're almost setting yourself up to fail, you know? And it's not to have a big, hairy, audacious goal, right? I want to affect 1 billion people. Cool, that's a huge thing, you know? And I'm going to continue doing it with this. But like, what am I creating daily in my life to get to that goal, right? The goal is like the frosting on a cake.
I don't want to make assumptions. Is it more like your North Star? Like, it's like 1 billion people I'm impacting is the North Star. Because for me, I don't want to think about goals. I want to think about, how do I cultivate and engineer my environment and my systems so that whatever it is, like a Buddha quote that I absolutely love and I use really, really often when partners first come on board. And it is, when emptiness and compassion are there, enlightenment is unavoidable. Now, it's a bold statement. Like, if you get anyone to say, if you do this and this result is unavoidable, that is a bold statement, and he makes that. And so for me, I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. In a business context, how do I set this up?
Yeah.
And so for me, I was like, what are the conditions that are necessary for the result to be unavoidable? And I really peeled that back. And that's what I sit down. I was like, I'll sit back in someone's business and I go, all right, what are the conditions? What are the systems? What are the environment? What are the processes we need to put in place so that we know that the outcome is unavoidable. Now, the one thing I really can't control is time, right? But I know eventually it is unavoidable for that outcome to happen.
No, that's interesting because you can start putting those in. And I'm just thinking about how do we use words in the same context? My results are unavoidable when I am 100% consistent in the mission I'm creating. So that's it. Your results are going to happen because you're so consistent every day. You wake up and you're attacking your mission. Then business-wise, like what are you putting in there? How are you putting your support system? Are you hiring people to do the things to get off the plate so you can stick in your genius? Now we're talking about like process and all that. Yeah, no, I like that, but I went straight to like, what are
Can I ask you then, Ruben,
Yeah.
when you think about you creating the immense impact that you're going to make, what do you think are the fundamental elements that make it unavoidable?
Well, number one is consistency. I just brought that up. And you have to walk the walk. Like I have to do it every day, you know, and I do have bad days and I am a human and I'm fallible. And there's days I'm not going to show up so loving, but knowing that it's a moment, it's a season, it's going to pass. But if I'm sticking to consistency, showing up, taking responsibility, the results are unavoidable. Yes, we could run out of time. Maybe I don't count the billion. I just recently put 1 billion people as a number because before it's like, I want to affect the way the world chooses love, right? I want to inspire people to see the world through the lens of love. But inspire people was kind of like a throwaway. People could be anybody. It could just be you. And I'm like, there's my goal. Or I could say people like all the people. Well, that's not really a feasible goal. But now it's like 1 billion people. Why not? There's 8 billion on the planet. Like, how do we attack and affect 1 billion people? You know?
I really like that. I was consulting this person like just the other day. I was sitting in the Whole Foods in Austin having this conversation. And she said, I want to impact 1 million people. And I go, hey, I totally get that. I think that's really, really cool, right? But I think that's a crappy goal for where you're at right now. Do you mean if I can be frank? Because how do you even know that you are going to impact 1 million people? Because when I asked a question earlier, I was like, or how do you deem what number it actually is at the end? She's like, oh, well, it could be like, she mentioned her TED talk and then she mentioned like clients and then she made a bunch. I was like, so on a business level, are you deeming someone that watches 15 seconds of your TED talk because it shows up as a view, or someone that's been 12 months as a client of yours that you've been able to dramatically be able to like change their life? You're deeming them as the exact same, right? And that's where I went kind of like back more to the Stoic philosophy. And I was like, okay, you can only control your thoughts and your actions at the end of the day. Just work on that on a day-to-day level. On like, and this is like the foundation of it. Like you're much higher in that hierarchy of what I would deem in that pyramid or like that success stack. But on the foundation of that, it would simply just be, what are you doing on a day-to-day level so that you're actually moving forwards, taking one step forward each and every day, but knowing that the North Star is I want to impact these amount of people, but that will never happen unless you do the fundamentals on that day-to-day level, which is why I love the answer that you just gave.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at that, we have more tools now for that base level. I can make it one Instagram post, one story, walking into the gym, getting up, booking someone for the show, you know, selling another hoodie. Like you start doing the math, painting one mural. Oh, 40,000 people drive by that mural. Like these numbers can get attainable at all these levels. And now you're starting to quantify it and be like, ooh, this could be real. Like I have a mural in Oakland. It's 10 stories tall. There's a freeway that runs right by it.
So good.
That's 1 million plus eyeballs a day that just drive by that mural. Just to think about that, I mean... So it, you know, that's how I'm like, yeah, 1 billion people is possible in a variety of all these things that we're doing, but we just got to keep showing up.
I love that. And I love how you then break that down from, do you know what I mean? A gigantic mural that 1 million people are driving past each day to one Instagram post, to one message to someone to be able to get onto the show. Do you know what I mean? Like, and again, it's the plethora of different things someone can be doing to be able to move themselves forward.
Yeah.
And some days we don't want to do that stuff. But hell, you've got a vision and you've got the North Star. and you've got the identity, you've got the skills, you've got the character traits to be able to do it, and therefore you do it.
No, yeah. And ultimately, like this convo, what we're talking about is like, what are the habits that all these people are doing and how are they showing up in the world to live through love, to continue to choose love? Like I define it a way, but like you're doing it your way and you know, you succeeded, you sold a business, you're impacting lives. Like there's all these ways we clearly know. And I've over conversations with you before is you are operating from that space and you're like, there's a lot of responsibilities in being a father of 4 girls and things like that. So it's like, how do we continue having this conversation and just start looking at people or listening to these conversations about how people are showing up? What are the habits? Doesn't mean that it's easy. Sure wasn't easy. You know, I painted my first mirror in 2014.
Wow.
Right? When did you start training your first client?
2004.
And you just sold your business last year, right?
Yeah. Oh, well, I started that business. I started 5 years ago.
But it still went back to that journey. I've been an artist my whole life. So if we want to talk about, I started sketching as a 2-year-old or whatever.
Yeah.
Like how long did it take to get to this point? So, you know, we're just looking at that. It's just, we don't realize it doesn't happen overnight. There are habits and consistency amongst all high performers, let's call it, in whatever level you're at. And let's just not forget we're not all Dwayne Johnson. We're not all The Rock. Like he shows up his way, right? We all are not a president of America. But that doesn't mean our impact isn't any less if we are the ultimate father, mother, brother, sister, whatever the case is.
I forget who this story is about, but it was about some doctor that was working in some remote country being able to help people. And he said, if you say 7 hours walk is too long to walk for 2 families of patients, you're saying that their lives matter less than others. And the idea that some lives matter less is the root of all that's wrong in the world. And so the context of that was he was working overseas in this country and the clinic that they had at the time was just jam packed with everyone. And he was like, he knew of these 2 families that needed this help. And he's like, I've got to go for this doing 7-hour walk. And they're like, if you leave and go for those people, you're not going to help the people right here. And he's like, do you mean that means you're saying that those people's lives matter less?
Yeah.
And for what I love about what you just shared, it's not comparing ourselves to others and getting back to that point of like one life principle I genuinely really work to be able to practice every single day is to do one kind thing for someone and to tell no one about it. And we only really do that as a family. So every time we sit down for a dinner with all of us as a family, at the start of dinner, we ask and answer 4 questions together. And that is, what was our favorite part of today? What am I grateful for? What's one kind act that I did today? And what am I looking forward to tomorrow? And I love it. So even being away right now, like it's super hard. It's tough for me because I love being able to do this and be on my mission and do this work. But being away from the girls is like heart-tearing stuff at the same time. And so we send our audio notes to each other every single day as well. Do you know what I mean? So probably an hour after I walk out of here, I'll send them the audio note and I'll answer those 4 questions. And I'm coming back to it, like, what's one kind thing that you can do today?
Yeah.
That's success. That's a great thing. Like, that's an amazing thing to do. And it is difficult, I will absolutely admit to, where you see other people doing amazing things and being like, oh man, like, why aren't I doing that? Why aren't I achieving that? Like, why? That's so much better than and it's just not about, and it takes discipline, it takes work, it takes cultivating the right people around you and yourself to be able to come back. And it's like, do you know what I mean? Somebody's success and beauty of life is being able to it's not just, sorry, I should take that word completely out, is them being able to bake a loaf of bread and to be able to give it to a family for today.
Yeah.
And put their love into it. It could be how they make the bed. It could be the absolute simplicities of what's happening, not these grandiose things. It could be,
I know.
I mean, kind of, we think is deeming everything that we should be going after.
Yeah, that's the thing. Keep it simple. Love, keep it simple. Keep everything simple. Okay, we're here to the final question.
Ooh.
Some say it's hard, some say it's easy. There's no right or wrong answer here. Chris?
Yeah.
How do you define living a life through love?
By being authentically yourself and serving others via being authentically yourself. That's my
Perfect.
answer.
By being authentically true to yourself and being in service.
Yeah.
And by being authentic, you are being in service. You're sharing your gift. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for this conversation. And where can the audience find you?
I appreciate you, Ruben. You're a fantastic human being. I really appreciate you having me here. It means a lot for me, brother. Best place to go is the Christopher Dufey podcast. I get to be able to share all the conversations I have. I get to share it out with the world, with the things I'm going through. For me, it's kind of my way of being able to put down my learning lessons of me just figuring out my own stuff and this journey through life as well.
Awesome. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Live Through Love. If you love this episode, you'll love this episode.